Okay, so we've come to the third part of the interviews now, and they're about kind of where you are now. So it's not about the transition, it's about where you are now, how you think and feel now, and what you do now.
Okay.
It's about being the new you.
On the other side, yeah. So it's rebuilding the tower. You've built the tower. What does it look like?
What does it look like, yeah. So let's talk about your current beliefs. What are your beliefs about God?
Okay, can I just tell you something in general about beliefs now that's changed?
Sure.
I hold beliefs really lightly. I'm not overly identified with beliefs now. At best, I have maybe some centering thoughts that I hold loosely. But that's something that's different about me now.
Sounds really unstable for a religious person, like you got nothing to hold to.
I understand why it comes across that way. Here's my problem with a belief set is what I feel about beliefs is I can think a number of things in my head and it doesn't affect my behavior. For example, I can believe that Christ came and lived and died for me, but it doesn't necessarily inform how I treat a cashier right now. And that's why beliefs for me fall short. They feel grounding, they feel like a big part of identity, but really for me, they don't actually affect my behavior in ways that I would want. And so I actually choose now things loosely because I want to be open. That's another thing is I don't like the idea of feeling like I've figured something out because then I'm not really open. It's kind of like a case closed. I know that. And I just don't really view truth or life that way. I like being open. I like having a curiosity. And I'm also really comfortable with mystery, things that I really just don't understand. But I can be in awe of it and I can appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay? So
you hold beliefs loosely.
Yep.
Okay.
So God, you said.
God.
So I definitely don't believe in a God like a man with a white beard. And I definitely don't feel like I would say I believe in God. So what I would say is I have moments where I like to believe in an organizing force or like a goodness that reigns that you could like tap into, or sometimes I like that thought. But that's like a hope and it comes and goes. Sometimes I don't always feel that way, but it's something I like to feel. Does that make sense?
You like to feel that what?
That there's like an organizing force for good that I can tap into, or that might support an effort of mine to be a kind human being or to try and launch something new into the world that's going to help people. But I am very aware that it's not necessarily true. It can't be known. It's like a hope. It's like, oh, I like that idea. I like that thought. But I wouldn't tell you I believe in God.
No?
No.
Do you identify as atheist or agnostic?
I don't.
Why not?
It doesn't say what I do think or what I do. It doesn't really say anything proactive about my thoughts or my ideas, which I continue to hold loosely.
Do you miss having a loving Heavenly Father and Mother that are looking down on you and blessing you and sprinkling blessing dust on you and waiting for you to return? Do you miss that?
Can I tell you I don't miss that because it's everywhere. There is enough love on this planet and in my life and in my relationships that I do not miss that.
Okay, how about Jesus?
So my feeling about Jesus is that he most likely was a man that lived, and he was an activist, a bit of a zealot.
And
that's what I feel about Jesus.
What about died on the cross, resurrected, Son of God?
I mean, I think there's some historical record that points to that,
That what?
That he died on a cross,
Oh,
that
okay.
he was, but I don't, the rest I don't. Here's the thing, I love that story. Like, I love parts about that story, but I don't believe that story to be true.
So what about like him suffering for your sins so that you can be forgiven?
So that was another part of a belief set that I couldn't wrap my brain around. So no, I don't have a problem.
What didn't you? What did you struggle to wrap your brain around?
Why God had to have a son, like a pure, good son, have to like suffer for me and everyone else. Like that was the plan. That's another thing where I'm like, that's the plan. That's the best we have. This poor soul has to like go through all that. There's beauty in it. I love the idea of the divine coming to earth, and I can see beauty. I'm open to that part. I just don't, for me, it's not real.
The atonement.
The atonement isn't real to me.
Because it doesn't make sense.
Because I don't believe I need to be atoned for anymore. I believe I was created to make mistakes, to be imperfect. I was made this way. And I believe in my ultimate worthiness and goodness. And so I don't feel like the way I was created by a God, if there was one, would need to then be redeemed by another source of the, that's not what I think anymore.
What about the Holy Ghost?
Well, I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm impressed in certain ways. I don't believe in a Holy Ghost. I would never call it that. I would probably call it like, sometimes I have intuition, and sometimes the intuition's right, and sometimes it's not. But I have impressions sometimes. I think I view that in more of an evolutionary, biological sort of way, probably, than like a supernatural way.
What about the Bible?
So I view the Bible kind of as like literature, as this record that was written after history actually happened, years later, where it's human beings grappling with the world around them in the best way they know how, and it reflects the culture and the people of the time. I don't find it tremendously inspiring. There are parts of the New Testament I like, okay, but I've read Bible as literature. I actually took a class called Bible as Literature, so I have read the Bible, and I don't know, there are better books for me.
What about the Book of Mormon?
So, Book of Mormon. There are parts of the Book of Mormon I like. There are verses that I like. You know, for me, I think I've found, what would I say, more resonant texts to offer me companionship on my way. That's what I'll say.
Like what? Give me some.
Oh, there are so many. Can I bring them all down?
Just pick 5.
I love The Conscious Parent. I love The Seeker's Guide or Broken Open by Elizabeth Lesser. I love some of the books by Katrina Kennison later, her later memoirs. I love Secular Buddhism podcast. I love, there are so many, and I know I'm forgetting. I love the minimal, yeah, and this may come up in the end, but there are a lot of good sort of books out there that Harville Hendricks, with regard to relationships, his
Getting the Love You Want.
Getting the Love You Want, John Gottman on relationships, yeah. Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now. I really loved that
Earth.
with the Oprah class. I like it more with the Oprah class than on its own.
You mean A New Earth, not the Power.
Oh, sorry. New Earth, yeah.
Would you say these are
Good
your
call.
scriptures now, or?
Well, I'd say they're foundational. I'd say they offered me, I don't love them in full. I have discernment, so some things resonate and some things don't. But I am now this conglomerate of ideas that resonate or don't. And the key now is that these texts change the way I experience the present moment, how I live my relationships with people that I love, and whether I feel that I am being open to growth in my own life.
What about Joseph Smith?
So I feel like Joseph Smith was really a talented, charismatic youth. A force for sure. Beyond that, I feel like history, it's too hard to read into much more than that.
Are you mad at him?
No.
Do you think he's evil?
I don't really look at people as like evil or not evil, so no, I would not say he's evil. There was clearly something about him that that made people willing to leave the comfort of their own home and communities and sort of take a leap of faith. That's all I can say.
But was there anything dangerous or scary or sad about him?
I feel like in the end, I view him as tragic, succumbing to many of the things that people of that sort of that kind of personality and talent and let's say vision succumb to. I don't find him rare in history, that type of personality. Or
what about the idea of a Satan?
Yeah, I'm not big on that either. The supernatural, yeah.
No?
No.
Okay.
No.
What are your thoughts about attending a church now, trying to find a different church, true church, whatever?
So, yeah, I know it works for people. For some people, they really enjoy that and they find a better place. For me, I think one of my epiphanies about myself is that an organized community is not something that's essential for me. And so I think going into another structure of some sort isn't something that is appealing to me personally. My new church would be all these loves that I have that enrich my life and make me feel alive and compassionate and aware, and doing those on a regular basis.
There's this idea of filling the holes and trading up, where religion filled all these holes for you, and then those holes emptied up when you had your faith transition, and now you have to look at how to replace them. So let's go through each hole and talk about how you filled it. So the first one is morality. We talked about law of chastity, word of wisdom, just what morality meant to you then. What are your thoughts about those things now, and just what morality is to you now in general, and what it's rooted in?
I guess my morality, I haven't really thought about this. I would probably say my morality would be based on respect and kindness to myself and respect and kindness to others and fairness. So doing no harm to others, doing no harm to myself, choosing behaviors that that enrich and, send love and goodness, into the world. That's my morality.
What if someone says, well, that's just golden rule. It's what Jesus taught. You're just
Fine.
parroting Jesus.
Awesome. Then I'd say, that's great. And that's what I mean about like beliefs. Like for me, morality is about how do I love and treat people in the world? How do I care about the planet? Because caring about the planet helps treat people well. It will help people live, have a place to exist. So these are things, and I look for ways that resonate with me to affect my behavior now. And so my morality would be, I don't want to harm myself. I have no wish to do that. And I want to be good to myself, actually. I want to have good relationships, and I want to offer that to everyone I meet, I want to offer love to them. I want to offer them goodness and honesty and respect. And so my behavior would fall in line with that.
And if somebody says, well, what do you base it on? You don't base it on a religion. You don't base it on God. You're just kind of making it up, or just it's
And I would say, I don't know if you had an identity piece there, but
it's coming.
Okay, well, that falls in line with my identity piece now. So I don't know if you want me to jump to that, but I don't feel like I need this superimposed structure to have me feel that I have worth or goodness. I feel that for whatever reason, my upbringing or my privileged life or the Mormon, it could be my Mormon upbringing up until now. I don't know. I'm open. But what I'd say is my identity now is not a deficit paradigm. I am worthy now, as I am. I am filled with goodness and want to do good. And I choose to grow. I want to grow during my time on this planet, That's my identity now. I am those things on my own.
What about premarital sex now? What about sexual fidelity? What about drinking and drugs and all those things that Mormonism said were bad? How do you look at matters of sexuality and matters of drugs and alcohol, etc. now?
Okay, could we break those down then, I guess? So you said sexuality, like infidelity? Because I'm not premarital
sex,
right now.
Masturbation, premarital sex.
So premarital sex with regard to my daughters?
Is it evil? Yeah, is it bad?
Okay, so that is a walk that I navigate with them. And I do so with their dreams and their desires for their life in the palm of my hand, with what I know and what I want for them. And it depends on where they are in relationship. I no longer feel like premarital sex is unilaterally bad. I feel like lessons in intimacy, our experiences can be good experiences. Now, education, information is a huge part of that. Empowerment is a huge part of that. So I say educate, empower daughters, talk about their dreams and what they want for their lives, talk about, the whole situation, risks and benefits, and be a confidant, someone who can talk through and support. But ultimately, here's the irony. It was never up to us. If our daughters wanted to have premarital sex, they would, right? The best thing we have is our connection with them, that they believe they're inherently worthy of good things in their life, that their dreams are achievable, that they're connected with themselves. They don't want to disrespect themselves. They're not going to engage in risky behavior because they respect themselves too much for it, and they're educated and they know what is at risk. And having said all that, okay, it's a tricky world. But I want my daughter to know that if she does have premarital sex or things go awry within that paradigm and she gets pregnant or right, that life is still for the taking and that it didn't touch her worth one bit.
What keeps you from sleeping around, cheating on your husband, etc.?
That you're a mate. Like, what? I love intimacy. I was made for it. I am just all about companionship and going deep and committing hard. It's just in my makeup. I love traveling that terrain, long and deep. And there's a lot of work to be done. I can speak that about myself, intimacy-wise. And I do better focused. And I do better within feeling safe. And the way I feel safe is with someone that I have known for years and years and years, where I feel like our goals and our intentions are in sync.
What about alcohol?
That's a bridge I haven't crossed yet for myself, and I'm gonna be honest, so this would be true for drugs and alcohol. It's just, I am a simplifier. That's why I love the minimalists. There's something, I view life as tricky. I feel like sometimes, I think we're all, but I'm kind of a deep feeler. And so I have enough in my world that I'm sorting through that for me, it's just something I haven't added yet. I haven't had the desire to add a new component with that. And I'm also really comfortable and really happy with that level of, kind of engagement with it. Now, coffee.
What?
Coffee has its place. Especially dessert coffee. Like, I am not minimalist in that way. It's just like salted caramel mocha.
Cream, whipped cream.
The caramel
12 kinds of
drizzled,
cream.
the salt on top. Seriously, I'm a total dessert coffee nut.
How do you now deal with the idea that we die, that you may not exist after you die, that you may not see your children or your parents or your loved ones again? Just this sort of nihilistic sort of inclination that some people have. It's just life's not worth living if we're all going to die, and it ends at death. How do you deal with that?
Okay, well, I feel like I kind of, just because my dad's death happened just a month ago, that I kind of covered that earlier without knowing this was coming. But this is what
summarize.
I would say. What I would say with that is loss is inarguable. It's undeniable. And I'm not going to do that. I surrender to that fact. I accept that fact as a human on this planet. And the only option I have is to love well now. Because my dad died over years. It was a long goodbye. But we don't know, we don't know how long we have. So what I would say is our charge is to love in the present, now, and live like it's all we have. And that is my great offering to death. That's all I've got, is if there is a way to stare down death and to acknowledge that it exists, it is to live with everything we have right now. And then the other thing I'd say is when it comes to like loved ones, or I bow to the mystery of it. I have no idea. And it is something else. I think birth offers that sort of stillness or sacredness, if you want to say. And death offers that too. Seeing someone's last breath offers that as well. And I would love to think of my dad living on that would thrill me to no end. But for now, I am his best chance. My children are his best chance. My siblings, my mother, people who were touched by him, that in some way were changed by him, that is how he continues to live in the world, you know? And that is something that I can embrace and that I can know is real. And so that is how my dad is immortal to me.
What about you? Your mortality?
And I think strangely, going through the process with my dad, I think it allows me to be more present to that. It didn't make me more fearful. I think it made me less fearful because I was able to see it for what it was. And it's undeniable, the power of it and the inevitability of it. And so, you know, luckily I'll tell you this. I think we have plenty of practice for death in daily life because I feel like there is plenty of loss to go around, and that may sound depressing, but I don't mean it depressing. I mean, you know, our children grow up. Things change. We lose our health at different times. We may lose a knee that once we could run, now we can't run because we have an injury. We lose friends. We lose their loss abounds us, and I view that as a practice for the ultimate loss and deaths that come our way. How we surrender to those little deaths, I think it has everything to do with how we, in the end, will surrender to the largest one of all, which is our own.
So are you scared to die?
I am not scared to die. I do have some feelings around controlling how I die, just because I've seen someone die in a very long, drawn-out, undignified way. That I love the idea of being able to hightail it to Oregon or to have some choices. That's what I'll say, how I die.
But what about the thought of you never existing again? That someday you're going to close your eyes and Margi will be no more.
That informs me and how I live, that I really want to live. I don't know. For me...
Why live if you're just going to die?
Because it's what I have. There is no, like, what's the alternative?
Oh, but if life's hard, it's painful, suffering, why not just end it if you don't believe in life after death?
Oh, for me, I just feel like there is so much beauty and so much goodness to be had, so much joy, so much learning, so much experience. We get to give to each other, we get to connect, we get to love. There's just so much here. And the value maybe isn't in it being forever. Like, what if that actually isn't the value of it? What if the value of it is that it's here, right now, for the taking, and that's what we've got? I don't know. I'm highly philosophical.
What if you never see your kids again?
What do you mean, what if? There will be a time that I may not see my kids again. And living with that makes me draw close to them and love them up and just engage in the present moment in a way that matters versus taking it all for granted because we think it goes on and on and on. It informs the way I feel like we love, we connect, and the respect with which we treat time.
So what is the meaning of life now for you?
So this is something I reflected on. Well, I've been reflecting on it for the past few years. So my daughter Maya came to me at one point, and we were in a conversation, and she was saying how she viewed me as kind of like a martyr type of, and it was really, it was good in a lot of ways because I felt like I was able to actually connect with her on some, this was a few years ago, so ideas that she had about me, about maybe not choosing things in my life or like being the sacrificer. And I was able to really tell her, you know, as she was weighing her dreams and all these big things she wants to do. And I remember telling her, Maya, I have lived my life the way I've wanted to. The minute I had Anna, things changed for me. And mothering became really central to what I wanted to do. So this is what I'd say. To love well. That's my number one. To love those who are closest to me well. I want when I die for them to be like, wow, her love was just beyond all to me. I can say that about my dad, and it's one of the best gifts ever. I want to love well. I want to ease suffering where I can. And hopefully I want to grow. I want to be open to growing in my life, to not living in fear, and to committing to sort of this path of hopefully doing the work.
So there are all sorts of studies that being social community is a really integral part of overall health and wellness and well-being. Something that I've noticed is that I've always known you're a little bit more introverted than me, and that you don't seem to really miss the community, the church, or feel like you need to replace it. So talk about what, the role that community plays in your life now, and whether you think you're better off or you're missing something by not having this sort of close-knit community that you are connected with now.
I think people are really different this way. And for me, my community centers around close friends, close friendships. And we choose each other. And we love each other. And we support each other. And I find for me, I do better with less than more. It's just the way I feel like I'm made. So my friends are my community. We have a couple families in town. They're my community that we get together with. And I tap into a larger community. Like I do go to Oasis on occasion, especially if there's a speaker that's presenting material or information on something that I'm really interested in. Then I can go and I can enjoy that. But I think my community is intimacy based. It's my close friendships.
Some would argue that the amazingness of your family owes a lot of itself to the Mormon community that shaped and influenced your family. And so now, and that extended to our family, and now that we have a good lifestyle, we have a lot of health and happiness and well-being, some would say it's a luxury that we can just sort of say we don't need community, but really it was community that blessed and nurtured us all the way along. And think about all the people out there that are lonely and sad or sick and needy and don't have community. Talk about all that.
Can I tell you something? That somebody sounds a lot like John Dehlin. That voice sounds really familiar. I think we all have different gifts. And here is what I'd say to that. I bloom where I'm planted. I am definitely aware of those around me, and sort of feeling for their needs. Here's what I'll tell you. My makeup is that when I shoot so broad, I have less energy for those near. And so because I'm introverted, where I have the energy, that's where my focus goes first. And for those who are more wired for community, I would say, I would leave it up to you to build community because you value it, you know? And I would lend my hand to the right project if I believed in it, like Mormon transitions.
So you talked about this last segment, but just talk, a lot of people say, well, I'll lose all my friends if I, leave the church. How do you, what are friendships like for you now?
So I think due to the public nature of how things went down, it was very clarifying. I do think here's the deal. I find value in having friends where I do not have to filter. That's really comforting for me. And so, but I find a lot of women and men like a variety of friends. And you don't have to have a no filter friend in every friend, right? You can have a fun friend, you can have, there are different roles friendships can play. And I'm totally open to that. And so what I would say to that is I wouldn't throw away a friendship. If there's a friendship with someone who you've been friends with for a very long time, I don't know that I would necessarily cut that off or end that prematurely. I think I've had conversations with a couple neighbors who talked to me openly, and I could tell they were worried in our relationship. And I just talked to them about, hey, listen, do you feel like, we could be different and that could be safe and that I could respect you and that you could respect me without having to change the other and that could somehow work, And I think if it's at that level of a friendship, it's a really great place to start to introduce and to grow a relationship that becomes more real. But what I would tell you is for those that drop away or who judge you kind of prematurely without knowing the situation, just based on you not attending church or things being, that process I have found creates space. And it may take time, but my experience is that the friendships that come to you after that are much more authentic and enriching. So hold tight. It's coming to you.
What about your friendships now? How would you describe them?
My friendships now are, I love it because I feel like I don't waste time. So my friendships are tried. I feel like, again, they're no filter, they're supportive, they make me a better person. I'm inspired by my friends, I laugh with my friends, and I feel I have better friends now, fewer, but better than I ever did before.
What is spirituality like for you now? What does it mean and how do you practice it, or do you practice it?
So spirituality to me now is, who am I in the present moment? How am I showing up? Am I showing up with a positive or negative sort of energy to me? That is my ultimate spirituality, and then I feel like I have practices that help me refine that to a place that I feel like reflects me in the best way. So that is my ultimate spirituality, that right there. And I do feel like I hold some, what would I say? They're not like mantras. They're like, I'll give you an example, like life is wise. I hold that. as something that I consider, for example, when things are difficult or uncertain, and I realize fully that I hold it loosely because I live a privileged life on this globe. So I have sort of a privileged state of being able to say that. But I do it less because I think it's true. I'd say it more because I like how I respond in my life when I live that way. I like who I am. And so that's something that I hold at different times. I also hold a paradigm of like grow or die, where in difficult moments I think, am I shrinking? Am I avoidant? Am I growing or am I dying here? And that helps me sometimes, do the brave thing, do the uncomfortable thing. I also have another paradigm I hold of birth and death that I think I went into a little bit earlier, where when I'm suffering or mourning a loss of something, I look for a birth of something, that I find that they're oftentimes intertwined. And if I look for that birth, then it helps me have this balance of, yes, there's loss in life, and I'm also giving birth to things all the time, and that those two things are actually intertwined.
What would you say your spiritual practices are now?
My spiritual practices would probably, I can tell you things that I meditate every day. I love getting out in nature. I find it really connecting and peaceful. I view my relationships as my spiritual ground, my practice, because it is my close relationships that teach me where my wounds are or what is left to be done, to be sort of healed in me. They're sort of evidence, if you will. So relationships are a key part of that practice for me, and how I love within those. I also, for me, I mean, cooking healthy food helps keep my energy up, which I love reading. Again, exposure to ideas helps me kind of grow. I also would say,
Did you already say nature?
I think I mentioned that earlier, getting outside. I think writing is a good thing for me. It helps me process things. Those are some of I do yoga. Yoga is another, I'd say, spiritual practice. Writing is good for me to kind of get a sense of where I am.
What if somebody says, that's not spirituality? Spirituality is like going to the temple. It's like singing a hymn. It's like going to church and hearing a sermon. That's not spirituality. Those are just living.
I love that. I'd say maybe that's spirituality to you. If it feels good to you, beautiful.
No, but what if they're saying to you, you don't have spirituality?
I'd say different strokes for different folks. I'd say this is what happy looks like for me. This is what, honestly, it's feeding me. And I'm glad you have something that feeds you too.
Can you raise a healthy, happy family without religion?
We're trying. I mean, family is, again, it is the ground for which we practice spirituality. So I just feel like now I view our family life as this great place to practice loving well and to observe what divides us as human beings, what gets in the way. And I do believe once you start connecting versus controlling, it really is a big shift. I think our kids have sensed it right away. It makes them feel more comfortable, they share all sorts of things oftentimes. The agenda is lost, so we can just kind of be together.
Are you missing, without religion, do you miss the cohesion, sort of like, the Mormon church would say it's all about families and it's all about bringing the family together. So, well, you don't have that now. So how do you keep your family together?
Well, we still have family traditions and family rituals, grounding rituals we do. So some of those would be family dinner most nights. I light candles. I like to make it special. I like for us to connect there. We, in the evening, try to do something after dinner a lot of nights, whether it's watching something, playing a game. We put our kids to bed every night. I do their backs.
What do you mean do their backs?
Scratch their backs or massage them, or I rub their feet, but I try to be part of that winding down. I find that they share, their musings change at the end of day as they become kind of softer and more reflective. Things slow down. I love that time. I kiss them and love them before they sleep. And in the mornings, we wake up and we make them breakfast every morning and use that time to connect with them and send them off with at least a little bit of love before they head to their various schools. The truth is there are infinite possibilities for connection, infinite ways. And, that's the fun part. That's the creative part of rebuilding. It's like, what do you love? What does your family love? We take hikes a lot together. We build on those common things. We read books together. I love reading books with my kids out loud, or we share shows, or whatever it looks like. The irony is where connection is, I feel like there's a sacred space.
So can you have a strong, vibrant, healthy, close-knit family without religion?
I think it's easier. In many ways. Because your relationships become real and authentic when control and obedience aren't the goal.
And unconditional love.
And unconditional love is the nest that they get to rest their heads.
So now talk about raising children specifically. I think a lot of parents think it's a scary world out there. There's drugs, there's, alcohol, there's pregnancies, STIs, STDs, there's unemployment and sadness and misery. And how do you raise healthy, moral, connected children, without religion? How do you keep them from becoming drug addicts? How do you keep them from becoming pregnant or getting diseases? How do you have them value their lives and be moral people and healthy and productive without, they say it takes a village to raise a child. How do you raise healthy kids without religion?
Yeah, I think it's a formidable question. It's why I love Shefali Saybury, and I read a ton of books because I'm curious about that, honestly. What I would tell you is I feel like connection's the answer, as well as because when you connect with your child instead of control, a magical thing happens, and that is that they're allowed to connect to themselves for real when there's no judgment or control at the helm. And so I think that's a really important place to start because it allows for them to be sad. It allows for them to be angry. It allows for them to make mistakes. And you'll actually have that information as opposed to if they fear you or if they are ashamed. You actually have that information. And what I say to my children all the time is, the reason why I like you to feel like you can tell me the truth is so that I can be with you. If I don't have that information of what you're struggling with or what you've done, then you're alone in that. You're alone, you're by yourself, and I would love to just be there with you so you're not alone and so that you don't have to hold it alone. And so I feel like the connection allows for you to have information and to influence. And that's what you lose when your children are feeling like they have to obey you or please you or work for your love. And I think that's a pretty great place to start. I would add a lot of great family culture in there. Choose a family culture, adopt practices, talk about and let them share in creating that for them. We actually, for a lot of Sundays, for a lot of times when various kids were going to church and others, we would have conversations about what a Sunday should look like, the different components. And some it would be church, but we would also create things for our family, whether it was a family dinner or a hike after church. But there were things that we were able to, and I think that's a great way to go, What else would I say with regard to that? Yeah, I think a village is important on some level. I've found that we've been able to create a bit of a village with our kids through some families in town, and at different times. But the wrong village is awful. A shaming village, a judgmental village, or a village that doesn't reflect your values, I could do without. So I'd rather have less and have greater integrity than have more and feel like I'm always trying to counteract, all the different elements. And so, but this really goes back to the paradigm shift of the no deficit paradigm. I don't view my children as being untrustworthy. I don't view them as lacking goodness. I view them as that is their inherent way of being. They want to be good. They want to love well. They want to be good to other people. And so then it's my job to support that and try and create an environment where they're able to do that and able to. And I would just say, in addition to that, it also has to do with having them feel like they have things they love in their life. That's something I feel like we work hard to do, is try to have them, as they're connecting with themselves, what do you love? What makes you really feel alive? Let's try a bunch of things. And the journey is in the trying. Don't feel like you have to glom onto any one thing. This is like books and books are written about this type of thing, but I think it really starts with connection and creating, a positive, unconditional love paradigm for your kids to thrive. And make no mistake, unconditional love doesn't mean no boundaries. It doesn't mean the house is a mess and no one does anything. I definitely feel like there is a structure to our home, and we still value things like responsibility or work or different things like that. So,
what if your kids become alcoholics or drug addicts or prostitutes or get pregnant? What if? How will you not know that it's because you didn't leave your religion?
So I think this taps into something about being alive, just the fragility of being alive and vulnerability about being alive. I don't think you will know that, and I don't think, here's what I'll tell you. I feel like a child that's drug addicted is coping with something. I feel like it's a cry, a voice to be recognized, a voice to be heard. And so that's what I would say about that. I would tune in. I'd offer support. It's going to be a long road. I don't believe in you taking responsibility, for that. I do believe in teaching kids from a young age good coping skills, how to deal with painful feelings and not judging negative feelings as bad and trying to be too surfacey so everything seems great. And I do believe in navigation skills, because I think it's really challenging to be a teen and young adult and human on the planet now. And so, but the answer with drug addiction is the same answer. It's connection. It's still connection. It's still, I love you. You are worthy. And sometimes, unfortunately, life experiences, it takes a while to add up to change. It takes a while to add up to and insight.
But if you have a kid addicted to drugs or commits suicide or gets pregnant, people are going to say, well, of course that happened. They left the church.
And that happens in the church. I think it's a human condition. I think it signifies something across the board. For me,
What if they say it's more likely to happen when you're not in the church?
well, they can say whatever they
No, I mean,
Who is this?
if you're taught in the church never to drink and never to, have sex premaritally and that there's a God watching, well, that's a real motivator for the kids. And if you take that away from your kids, why would they want to be, good? They would just go into all sorts of bad things.
Yeah, I think overall I view kids as not, I don't think there's any way to live without suffering and to make this pretty perfect package around parenting. I have a great dose of compassion for any parent. And in my own family, we have had drug addiction, and it is no picnic.
In the church.
In the church and out of the church. It's just across and for me, what I would say is it's about connection, it's about patience, it's about time. There is no one right way to do it.
But is it more likely to happen out of the church than in?
I feel like here's what I feel. I feel like as human beings, we need to be equipped to live our own lives. And what that means is making choices, being in touch with ourselves and what makes us happy. If our kids grow up being in touch with what they love and what they don't love, and they feel empowered to build a life they want, they're way less likely to be drug addicted than if they're shamed, if they're criticized, if they're said, here is the one way, and you don't fit the mold, and it's gonna feel like this if you don't fit the mold, and by the way, we only love you under these conditions. That, to me, feels like that is way more risky. I would definitely choose the connected, honest, I'm able to influence, and it's still difficult, but I have an authentic human in front of me that feels safe to confide in me.
How do you look at charity and service, opportunities to serve now? Without the church, do you even think about that now? Does that matter to you? And how do you think about it? And what do you do about it?
Sure. So like tithing money, I still believe in giving back that way. And so the difference is we kind of do a near and far. I try to balance, things like water, clean water, which is a global problem, with things like local things or someone I know that really needs some help. So
you still believe in giving?
I still believe in giving back. I think it's important. I still believe so my service, if you want to call it that, I feel like with what you do, I buckle down and I am on some more hours as a mom. And those are extra hours of that is service. It's the way I have contributed to Mormon Stories in my own way. I also talk you through a lot of things. I'm a confidant. I even think I'm an advisor of sorts to you. But I really have been tending my dad on a level and being a support to my mom for the last 10 years. But my ultimate service will always be to my family first.
It's not necessarily a foregone conclusion that you leave the church and you're happy, right? I imagine there are people who leave the church and maybe end up being less happy. So do you feel like you've traded up in joy versus down? And what do you think the secrets or the keys are to making things better after you leave versus worse?
I feel like I have definitely traded up, no question, and I feel like I've had some challenging situations in the past 5 years, but I still feel like I've traded up. How to navigate it so it would be so it's more likely that would be so. Oh, I think taking the time, not getting in a reactive state, I think, to leaving and feeling impressed to do too much too soon. I think our transition out was so gentle because it was so long. In some ways, it was kind of brutal at the end, but I'd say go slowly, go gently. I'd say give yourself time and space to connect to yourself and what you need. Again, I'd say a safe person to talk to is invaluable. And really tap into what it means for you to connect and what it means for you to feel joy and purpose in your life. And I find when you ask those questions, when you're willing to really ask those questions and really give yourself time to both grieve and give birth to something new, it's a really empowering, enriching experience that it brings a lot of fulfillment with it.
There are certain stereotypes that people perpetuate about those who leave the church, and I'm going to just give you some of the stereotypes and sort of accuse you of, and just ask you to comment as to whether or not you think they apply to you. Okay.
Okay.
So people leave the church because they wanted to sin. Is that true for you?
Well, no.
Why not? I mean, what's your response? Margie left the church because she wanted to sin.
I actually feel like I was rejected out of the church. So I don't feel like I just left. I feel like this is what I did.
Well, you resigned.
I moved toward my values. And my values are based on truth and goodness and love, and not on sin. But it's very difficult for me to get back into these words like sin, or it's very hard for me to connect to, because really, what does it all mean? I don't know. I drink coffee. Sue me.
All right, they leave the church because they were offended. You were offended at how they treated John, so you left the church.
I left because I went toward my values. I left because my values were goodness and love and growth and all these things, and I failed to find them in my local chapel.
But you were offended.
I really wasn't offended. I didn't always have positive experiences, but I don't always have positive experiences in my marriage, and I don't leave that,
What?
I'm not after positive experiences. What I'm after is growth and feeling goodness and feeling like, I'm on this path with other people, and isn't it exciting? And I feel inspired by what I see.
All right, how about this one? People leave the church are angry.
I'm very angry. I'm really angry. I've got a lot of anger. A lot of anger.
Are you being sarcastic?
Yes.
Why?
No. I don't feel angry. I feel happy. I feel emboldened.
Another stereotype is they can leave the church, but they can't leave it alone. So if somebody says, oh, here Margie is, she's doing this video. She can't just go on and live a good life. She has to go back and tear down the church and disparage people who continue believing in it. What would you respond to that stereotype?
Here's my response to a common theme in all of these questions. Here's what I would say. For every person who leaves, these feelings or these ideas that you're putting forth, I think they're part of the experience. It is okay to feel angry if people treat you not so great. That's okay. It's kind of part of the process. So I think these are natural feelings to have, I just don't feel that they capture the root. the root of why people leave. And I also don't view any of these things that you're naturally saying as inherently bad. I think there's a time when people leave that they may still care about the church and still it's part of their paradigm and it's hard to let go. And hopefully as they move through their process and allow things to flow, right, and move forward, they'll let it go when they are ready to let it go. But I just don't feel like it's helpful to, this reminds me of being put back in a box where there's certain behaviors that are okay, certain feelings that are okay, and other feelings that aren't. So in my experience, these are never the root of why people leave.
In what ways are you the same person now that you were before? Just list them off.
Well, I love the idea of honesty. It's a value of mine. Compassion. I love being of service to other people, of feeling like there's something in my making that could ease the suffering of someone else and doing that. I love frugality. I love the idea of not wasting, of using my resources wisely. I love the idea of forgiveness, that oftentimes through my, not being aware of my own actions, I hurt people. And I want to be able to make amends there and to do better. I think that's part of my process, to be able to vocalize that and to be able to forgive myself and realize that I learned something there that was valuable. I believe in my family, the value of family and the value of my marriage. Those are things that I'm completely devoted to. I believe in growth. There's so many things I still believe in that I believed in before. They're mine though now. They're part of my tower because I defined what that looked like and why I felt like they were important and my intention in doing them. And it's not out of fear for my own salvation or anything like that. It's because I honestly I find value in living a life with these things in them. My life is richer and healthier, and my tower is my own making. It is mine. It reflects me. And, for so many years, I wanted to be this artist. I took all these art classes because I think artists are really cool, and I really wasn't very talented at anything. With regard to like visual arts or ceramics and then I've realized my art is my life. That is the way that I am going to be the best artist ever, the way I craft it, the way I choose it. And my tower is like that. It reflects me.
How are you different now than before?
I would hope I'm more open now. I definitely feel like I am more connected to myself. I feel like my connections with both you, my husband, and my children are higher quality connections. I feel like I'm more intimate with both my life and in my relationships with other people. I feel that I am more empowered. I feel like I know myself better. I know what I'm capable of. I feel like I have more compassion for people who suffer or feel alone. I feel more one with people on this planet in spite of differences. I feel more free to live my life as I choose it.
Any tips on maintaining positive mental health?
Well, here's what I would say. I feel like I've listed kind of some things like I know exercise has been actually scientifically proven to relieve mild to moderate forms of depression. And like, I feel like I've given some things that were helpful to me. And so those would probably also work here. So like exercise, meditation really was helpful to me. Nature, getting out in nature regularly. I think that's also a scientifically kind of proven thing. Meditation is also scientifically. I find get inspired by something. I mean, feeling inspired is laughter is super helpful as you're grieving, just to be able to tap into that spontaneous joy. A good friend, again, a safe person to talk to, I think. Room and space to grieve. I think it's important, as fast as our culture is, to honestly take time to process your own experiences, how you feel about them. Good boundaries help with mental health. You end up feeling less resentful, less used by people. If you find that you're feeling stuck for too long, that grief or sadness is sticky, it doesn't move through you, and that you're heavy, you're walking around heavy, get help and help someone. Sometimes I view depression as like you have a pile up on the shelves. There's too much to go through by yourself, and you need some help with getting all those things unpacked. And there's no reason to do it alone.
What are the hardest parts now?
I think the hardest part for me now is oftentimes I feel like a snail without a shell. So I feel like being in the church it may have been a false sense of security, but it was a shell of some sort. It gave the feeling of a shell. And now I have no doubt that I really don't have a shell other than my own resilience and sort of determination to go on. But there is that feeling sometimes of feeling vulnerable to the world, to feeling deeply about things and having to sit with that. Not having some magic, pray it away, read your scriptures. It's just, this is kind of part of what it means to be human. And in the end, it ends up making us more compassionate.
Is there anything you miss being in the church?
Nope.
It sounds too simple.
Tempt me. You have options
You don't
wanna
miss
tempt me
anything.
with?
You don't miss anything.
The lessons, the hymns, I have songs I love to sing more with my family, and we get to dance to them. We get to have dance parties as we do it. Like if you want to talk about like the ceremonial, the things where your family gathers and you're all together, we have that too. We go for hikes. It's in different form, but we have it and it resonates more deeply. The 3 hours on Sunday, nope. Every time I'm hiking and I see people go to church, I'm like, bless you, but I'm in the right place. Like, I mean, what else? The structure for youth things, to me, that was an expensive paradigm for our girls. It ended up, we're having to really look at some shame issues and some things around that. So for us, if we had had a different experience, maybe, but for me, I feel like what we're able to do is try to foster authentic friendships and even more really good family relationships and cousin relationships where we can. So I can make cinnamon rolls anytime. Yeah.
What about the garments? Temple?
Do you miss the garments, honey? Do you miss me in garments?
All right. Here's a good one. What could the church do to get you back? What would they have to do?
Not going to happen.
I mean, apologize for things, fix things, change things.
I'm not really interested. First of all, I don't even dwell there anymore. So that question is, it feels so retroactive. It feels like I would be going back in order to even think about that. And so I don't know if that would be different if I was more community wired, if that could be different for me. But I think because that piece isn't a large part of my makeup, that for me, I'm just not even looking toward anything organized in that way.
Any regrets?
About the process of transitioning?
How you did it?
I think my closest thing to coming to that would be how the excommunication went down. But here's the thing. We didn't have a lot of control about that. And so it's not really mine. I would have had to change how that all works. It's not really up to me.
What was hard about the way it went down?
I just found it to be very brutal. It's not so much for you and I. I feel like that it was hard, but as adults, we sort of weathered that. And quite frankly, they were our choices. But for my children, there are times when I wish we could have been in another state, another area for that to happen, where they could have had some neutral ground, a place to rest their head.
So maybe you regret that we got excommunicated in such a public way that caused a lot of pain and suffering on the kids.
In Logan, Utah.
Why do we have to move to Logan?
Maybe that, and I'm sure there's some good part to that in time, but that's still a little bit hard for me to swallow at times.
Real quickly, what are the best parts now?
I feel like the best part now is waking up feeling completely like your life is yours. And with all that means. And not feeling immune from pain, like realizing that pain is going to come your way, but also realizing you're made for it. And you're made for this.
What does that mean?
You're made for struggle. We're wired for struggle. We're wired for handling pain. And I think one of the best parts of my journey is coming out on the other side of all those things I feared and realizing, it's liberating. So what makes life good isn't that it's only happy, that there are only pleasurable feelings and emotions attached to your life. What makes it so great is that it's real and it's yours and you're alive and you're awake. You're awake to your own life.
Any surprises?
You mean being kind of here on the other side of it? Any surprises? I'm surprised at how good it feels. I'm surprised at, how much beauty and just loveliness there is in people, in life, in the world. I find it staggering.
When you think back now to your beliefs and your testimony, what do you think they were based on now? I mean, a lot of people say, well, at the time I thought it was the Holy Ghost. At the time I thought it was, the Spirit. Or now looking back, do you reinterpret that? Do you, make it naturalistic instead of divine? What your beliefs were? What your testimony was based on?
So I view my testimony as being based on something emotional.
The old one.
The old one. Yeah. Oh, you mean it now?
No,
or
I mean the old one.
Yeah, the old one. So like Jonathan Haidt argues that oftentimes when we feel rational, or what we feel rationally, is actually something that we have felt emotionally first, and then we use rational thoughts to sort of back up what we're feeling. And I really view, the church came into my life and gave me a family. It gave me a family culture that didn't exist like that before. That's pretty hard to rival in the way of sort of hitting you emotionally where you live. I also feel like with many of the beliefs, I sort of integrated some of those beliefs into my personality and into my story, and thereby embedded them into my emotional story. I'm thinking of like the perfectionism and, this sort of drive to be good. I so wanted to be good and perfect and chosen. So I think the extent to which I emotionally made those beliefs, I integrated those into my story, I think it makes sense.
That what?
That I lived it for so long, in spite of, the difficulties it presented and the dissonance I felt rationally and in my lived experience.
Sure. What resources do you recommend for people living a life after religion? What's been most helpful to you? What would you recommend others to look into? Okay,
well, the first thing I'd say is look inside yourself and find that for yourself. That's the whole point of transitioning, is that you're not listening to people anymore. So take all this with a grain of salt, honestly. But I think I would probably say beyond that, or if you want ideas or you're struggling to find your own, again, my resources are secular Buddhism, a good meditation practice. I do 10 to 15 minutes. I make it really doable. Do it every day. It's not going to change you're not going to just see in color or something where you saw black and white. But I just find that it builds a little bit of a buffer between my response time to things. I choose more, I'm less reactive to situations, if that makes sense. It also makes me less anxious, which is always good. Nature, I feel like all these things are pretty science-backed. Get out in nature and the thing about nature is you never think about changing a tree. A tree is just beautiful of its own merit. It relaxes your brain, makes you feel good. Do it with a friend and it's even better, a safe friend, and it's even better. Find someone safe to talk to. Try to orient yourself toward growth in ways that watch documentaries, watch or read books, whatever way you feel inspired or get information or have ideas about things you want to try in your life. I think that's a really great thing. Sleep well. A lot of things are tied to sleep. Eat well, love well. Really maybe consider looking at your relationships as a really great place to start your spiritual work. It's just right where you live, right where you are. No need to go anywhere, those that you're with every day. And maybe slow down a little and allow yourself to feel some pleasure from time to time.
Last one. Bear your testimony, whatever you believe in. This is your final goodbye statement.
Really?
Yep. I believe.
Yeah, but I hold beliefs loosely. So this is like, honestly, what are you doing to me, Jonalyn? I believe that good love feels good. I believe that we're all worthy of our space here on the planet, and it doesn't have to be earned or worked for. I believe we're made for growth. I feel like we're built for it as a species. We mutate and change and adapt to circumstances all the time. I feel like we're here to love, and it's one of the toughest tasks there is, to love well. I believe that we're always sort of either going in the direction of growing or dying, becoming bigger or smaller through how we react to things or choose things in our lives. I like to consider life as wise, that we can choose to respond in our lives like life was kind of made for us, and that these things are kind of for our good, and we could at least approach them that way, and it ends up with I think, a more positive journey, not to mention results. I feel like we're wired for struggle, and that we should be unafraid and not feel punished because we're struggling. It just means we're human and we're here and we're alive. But I think we're made for it, and that we should feel fully equipped to meet what's at hand. And I believe in the power of acceptance, that accepting what is the best hope we have of responding in a way that's true to us. And my last one is, life is beautiful. There's beauty everywhere.
What about when it's messy?
There's beauty in that too.
You sure? What about when it hurts?
On the other side of the hurt, I feel like there's more compassion for ourselves, there's more self-knowledge. That's what awaits us at the end, is as deep as we hurt, is as deep as someday we'll feel, hopefully, joy.
You feel joy?
Totally. Moments. It's all about the moments.
All right, Margi, Dehlin, thank you for joining us today. How do you feel?
I feel a little tired.
You're fantastic. I'm going to come kiss you one more time.
I will allow that.
Love you.